It's been a few weeks since we've torn down an engine with some extra crankcase ventilation installed, and it just so happens that recently someone donated this Toyota Corolla 1.8 liter engine to me that has inside parts now on the outside. So this one's hurt pretty bad. And normally when I get an engine to tear down, it's because I want to sell parts off of it, which I will sell parts off of this if someone is crazy enough to want them. But the goal of this is not to salvage some good parts. The goal of this is to see how bad can someone tear up a Toyota Corolla? This is the Toyota 2ZR FE, and actually the 2ZR is a very widely used engine. It's used in all kinds of different Toyota products. The Vibe, the Matrix, the Corolla, some Scions, and even the Prius got a version of the 2ZR. They do have some issues. I'm not going to pretend they're great engines, but overall, I usually see these things last about 250 to 300,000 miles with suboptimal maintenance, and that's right about the point where this one is. This is about 260,000 miles, and I actually have a story with how this thing failed. Kind of. I was told that a young lad was driving this Toyota Corolla, it's a 2010, and it started losing power. And instead of thinking, well, something is wrong, maybe I should pull over and check it out, the throttle was adjusted to compensate for the loss of power until the gas pedal couldn't go any further through the floor and the engine made a loud bang and shut off. Well, let me show you what the bang was. So this is what I'm going to consider the good side, which if you have a hole in the engine, it's never good, but this is pretty significant. Lined up with cylinder 2, I would say, definitely took a chunk out. But the bad side, or at least what I would consider bad, it's bad because there's part of a connecting rod hanging out of it, and I don't know if you can see, there's a large hole, a very large hole behind that water housing. So we are definitely in for some malice in the combustion palace today. Another thing to note is this engine was partially disassembled to get it unstuck, so I believe it turns over, which means I'm hoping there's all the carnage parts inside, but a lot of times that stuff falls out and doesn't make its way back in. So we will see when we get it apart. This is from an automatic car. I know that because I got a flex plate with it. And it does, in fact, very roughly turn over. There are no spark plugs in it, and it doesn't turn over past that point. So it goes to that point. Let's go the wrong way. It's making all kinds of unhappy noises. Ooh, maybe we fixed it. Does it turn more than one revolution? Yeah, as long as it's running backwards, there's no problems here. Let's take a look down these intake ports. That looks okay. It's hard to tell if there's any damage there. It all looks pretty all right. Next, I'm going to remove the exhaust manifold, some other brackets back here.
Broken.
Let's take a look at the exhaust ports. Those valves are open. I don't see any major damage. They all look consistent, which is important. Next, let's unbolt the valve cover. Can I lift this off? Nope. Blue. This will be our first look at how this engine was cared for, or not. Or not. Yet not. That's not great. So there's quite a bit of deposits. I have seen much worse with less miles. For 260,000 miles, it's not awful. It's just not great. What is bad, though, is if you look at some of the deposits you see, they're kind of sparkly and dry. Like, look at the head of that bolt. Let me zoom in. That's forbidden glitter. that is a sign of things to come as this teardown goes further. One thing I will say is it does look like it has some new timing components, so someone's been in here recently. The next first thing I'd like to do is remove the oil filter. I want to see what this looks like. We'll take a look at the filter once it's out. Well, not a lot of oil came out of that. Oh, whoa. Well, this ain't great. Look at the sparkles in that. And then if you look in the filter housing, there's lots of sparkly glitters, and the filter itself, look at that. Loaded. We've seen worse, but you never want to see metal in a filter, especially not like that. Not great. Next, let's get the crank pulley off. Oh, really? I thought these just slide right off. Apparently not. 2 can play this game. What we should do is, to keep from launching this onto my floor, I'll thread this a couple threads in.
Bingo bango.
Next, the engine mount bracket. Before we get too far ahead, let's get the timing chain tensioner removed from the front cover. Now the oil filter housing. Uh-oh, I see a problem. Well, you hate to see this. This was likely done when the timing chain and components were replaced, and this is ungood. I don't know if this happened during reassembly though, but that really looks like it was like that for a while. And that will definitely create a problem with oil pressure. This is where your oil flows through to and from the filter. I don't know which direction is which on this engine, but it's either going to cause a massive leak or a loss of pressure or both. And if you're not paying attention, well, we're going to see what happens. Next, the water pump. Some of these are not the right bolts. Oh, leak a little coolant, no problem. Holy RTV, Batman. That's too much. You don't... What? Is there no gasket? Isn't there supposed to be a gasket? Chime in, fellas. For you guys that work on these things, I feel like there's supposed to be a steel gasket and not RTV. But the actual water pump looks good. It's definitely a replacement, an aftermarket unit. Yeah, we're not saving that. Now it's time to tickle the timing cover bolts. We're going to go ahead and unbolt the big ones first, 14mm headed bolts. To the smaller ones. I think that's all of them. Oh, this is going to come with some hose. That one's free. I need to remove the other one. Let's go ahead and remove the dipstick tube. The dipstick tube. Oh, come on now.
Will you give it to me?
I don't know if it wants to come out. I mean, clearly it doesn't. My curiosity is if there's some damage in there keeping that thing, like it's deformed in there.
You win this time.
Just take the hose off from up here. Oh yeah, we got it broke free without any damage. Now we can get the timing cover off, I believe. A copious amount of RTV has been applied. I'm still having problems over here, but these are disconnected. There we are. It took a little maneuvering, and we're in the same boat that we were. Oh, I got it. It was a little bit of tension on the chain. Now we're off. Well, the first thing I noticed is that this looked wrong. That may not be bolted in anymore, or it's broken, which I suppose means the same thing. So someone just did the chain, and man, leave some RTV for the rest of us, guy. You don't need to seal the front of the cam phaser. It's that you're not doing any good there. There's a lot of signs that someone was in here. Maybe it's just a DIY thing. I don't know. I don't know who did this. It does look like they used factory Toyota parts, which I have to commend. That's super good. They do make a lot of aftermarket ones and they're cheap. But it looks like the oil pump is either broken off or unbolted. I don't know which. That tensioner, it looks like all this stuff is brand new. I don't see any damage to any of the guides, except for some extra RTV, so those don't leak oil. Next, let's strip the timing system. Oh, this is under some tension. It's fine. A brand new chain. You know, if it survived an engine failure like this, it's good. We need to take this bracket off because there's something very telling right underneath it. You'll see. Holy, 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 holy. That is that's bad. That's a connecting rod. It is bad. That connecting rod, there's no piston, but there is a wrist pin, and I'm sure it's fine because they usually are. It is currently connecting the upper oil pan to the block. Not its main job. One thing I just noticed before I start taking the valve train apart, look at that. That's also bad. This poor engine didn't stand a chance. And if you were wondering what that O-ring fit up against, it is this, which supplies oil to the valve train. It's got these little bitty holes in it. And yeah, so there was an internal pressure leak. Let's pull the valve train apart, cram these off. Let's take a look at the cam tray or cam letter. I'm not sure which Toyota calls it. It's actually in better shape than I expected. For having a lot of oil-related issues, there's some damage to these removable bearings, but the journals themselves, not bad. And I looked at all of these. They don't spin great. They feel dry, but none of them have failed because they're adequate size, unlike a lot of the modern rollers. It's definitely had a rough life if you look at everything that you can see. Let's look at the camshafts. They're not too terrible. There's a little bit of wear. I still think they're serviceable, but I don't know what the demand actually is. You could put these cams in a Prius and turn it from an FXE to an FE engine. I don't know why you would do that, but you could do that. if you'd like. A little bit of wear on the journal. It's really not terrible. What is this? What is this? That's a fragment of abnormal engine operation. There's some more right there. Next, the cam tray. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Now we have 10 head bolts. Let's go ahead and rip its head off. Well, I already see a few problems that we're not surprised by. The head gasket is not one of them. That looks fantastic. So I am both impressed and I'm just impressed by all of this. First off, let's start at the back. It's fine. There's a pretty good amount of wear on the cylinder wall. Now bear in mind, this is over a 250,000-mile engine and clearly maintained by professionals. I really have no idea what its history is like, but the pistons don't look too terrible, at least from this vantage point. I'm sure the skirts have some wear. Then let's get to the front one, and clearly we have some impact marks, some witness marks from valves. That piston definitely came up at the wrong time. But what I don't see is a ton of damage. Well, I guess a little bit. There's some signs that the piston hit the cylinder head. Let's go look at the cylinder head to verify. So here's cylinder one, and yes, the piston definitely struck the cylinder head, cleaned all the carbon off here. And because there was some piston to valve contact where I believe there to be, this head would definitely need to go to a machine shop to check for damage. But I don't see obviously glaring damage from this situation, which is quite surprising judging by how the block looks. These all look pretty consistent. There's some buildup, but not a ton of carbon. It looks pretty decent. I might get a good head out of this. This channel is relatively unbiased, and we rely on facts for information. And facts are based on science, which is what we're going to do right now. Nobody's surprised. Nobody. Next, we're going to turn this thing upside down, drain all the engine juice, so we can pull the bottom end apart. I hear stuff moving around inside. I think that's as far as I'm going to go. Let's go ahead and unbolt the lower oil pan, which it looks like it's got a broken off bolt right there, and that one's missing, so I bet someone's been in here. That one's not seated. Is this glued in? Oh, that feels like it might be glued in. Nope. Uh-oh, we just dropped some components. Whoa! So that's where anti-seize comes from. And that is in fact unbolted. It wasn't blasted off by a flailing connecting rod. So, this is some prime bearing souffle, or should I say puree. This is more of a puree bearing. It's actually super dry. This is anti-seize. There's some large chunks of bearing here. This is literally going to be all bearing material minced, completely minced. So clearly the oil pump's been unbolted. There's also a fair bit of debris in the pickup. It's not a great place to store your bearing material, but it's not enough to clog it. See if we can get the oil pump chain off. Not really. It's literally spewing chunks of bearing out of this thing. There we go. We got it. We just had to work it back and forth. See if we can get the gear off. Oh yeah, she'll come off. Look at that. Pump is out. And this little baby chain is off. Let's blast this pump apart. Oh, it is kind of broken. It's got some impact marks along the top of it. Very simple pump. Very much bad. Well, the reason I say it's bad is you can clearly see when my phone, when this focuses, focus. You can clearly see that there's a lot of debris run through this thing. This is not a dry situation. This is a dirty oil filled with metal contamination. If we look at this, there'll be equal but opposing impact and pockets. There's all kinds of issues there. The sides have some damage too. Anytime you get material that's not foreign material run through a pump, it's going to find its way to every area, and it's going to do damage to the housings and the gears. Now it is time to unbolt the upper oil pan. And I can tell it's missing that bolt, and it has some not factory bolts in it. It's fine. I'm not sure how hard it's going to be to remove this, but I will say a little piece of, that looks like a piece of piston skirt. I'm not supposed to see that. Oh, that's not really sealed to anything, is it? Remove this. It's going to come with the dipstick tube. Uh-oh. Oh, we're dropping engine parts. And believe it or not, the protruding rod is the problem right now. I don't really know what to do about this problem. And it is very, I might try to turn the crank over. Maybe if I turn the crank over and put it into a slightly different position, the counterweight will release the rod and wrist pin. And we can have our upper oil pan, albeit with a rod stuck in it. It is worth a shot. Look at that. It gave it to me. Oh, it gave it to the floor too. Wow, that is mutilated. Well, there's quite a bit of damage in here. Look at the color on the crank. I think that the rod cap was beat off of this one and made its way to its neighbor who didn't want it, and it probably launched the rod cap out of the block. It's probably no longer in anyone's possession. Maybe in somebody's tire, hopefully not. The remnants of the piston are still very much stuck in the bore, but large gaping hole there. That's where the one got in the way, but yeah. The rest of this doesn't look great. Now, if you're wondering, there's some numbers stamped into the crank here, and then there's also some numbers stamped here. That's Toyota bearing sizes. I love how they do that, because then you know exactly how it was sized from the factory. Let's go look at that upper oil pan. Impact mark here, impact mark right there, and an exit wound there. And here is the connecting rod. We'll see more of that later. Let's remove the remaining rod cap bolts. Doesn't really want to let go of its bearing shells. So let's go ahead and get the main cap bolts out, and we'll lift the crank out, and then we can push the rods and pistons out of their bores. Let's zippy-doo-dah these out. At this point, we should be able to just pluck this crank right out. Let's go ahead and push these out. Just the top. I wonder if I need any help with these, or if I can just... Oh yeah, these just come right out. Well, we have damage, as we saw earlier. That is pretty impressive. It looks like the bearing flew apart from lack of lubrication. It's a lot of heat, a lot of friction, and it probably started knocking, and that's when the gas pedal was applied to counteract the slowing down or reduction in power. And eventually it ripped that bolt out and ripped that one in half. And when that came apart, this fell down, the crank hit this, ripped this out of the piston. The bottom half of this went over to its neighbor, got kicked out of the block. There's some impact marks there. But the rest of these weren't far behind. All of the bearings look like this. They are trashed. Now, you can blame some oil consumption issues these engines do have with clogged oil rings. It's not usually that prevalent. That's usually not what I see that takes these engines out. But they don't look great. But it's really hard to say because there's so many other things that we found wrong that I bet it had nothing to do with using oil. It might have used some oil, I don't know. But I bet it had everything to do with the level of craftsmanship performed on this engine. A crankshaft it's got chunks of stuff on it. Look at the discoloration here. That's a lot of heat. I don't know if you can see just how much heat there actually was in this, but it was glowing. The rest of the crank, I would say average condition. It actually fared pretty well. There's a little bit of metal transfer there. It fared pretty well, but the counterbalances are toast. And the main bearings are all pretty damaged here. You need oil pressure. It's important. Let's take a look at the boring part. Yikes. So that usually happens when the piston starts traveling too far in the bore. But they're all pretty worn. This engine did not lead a happy life in the end. Pretty bad. I'm the last guy to condemn someone for trying to fix their own car themselves, especially to save a buck. And I really applaud people that go out of their way to tackle a job, either out of financial necessity or curiosity or whatever, that they haven't done before. Maybe they don't have the experience, maybe they're not professionally trained, maybe they just hop on the internet to see how it works, or want to read the manual or buy the shop manual and tackle a job like this. There's a lot of intricacies with a job like this to do it right, where you're not going to have to do something twice. Now, I did, however, call the person that gave me this engine to find out as many details as I could, and I don't really have a ton more, but I will say this particular Corolla belonged to the son of a former Lexus tech that worked at this dealership. It's not a Lexus or Toyota dealer, mind you. And I really struggle to believe that a trained technician would do this level of work. This is pretty DIY-ish, but it does have OEM parts, which is kind of perplexing. These are the spendy parts. You spend more money on this than any of the aftermarket stuff. And usually I see this level of work with the Rock Auto cheap aftermarket stuff that can work perfectly well if it's installed correctly, which this wasn't. However, if said Lexus tech was looking for a Corolla for his son, which these are fantastic cars, I would recommend a Corolla over any other comparable vehicle from that same era, especially a Civic. If a tech was looking for a car for his son and he had a receipt from someone that had OEM parts installed for a timing system, that would make the car more valuable, I would think, or at least more appealing. The level of work is also equally important. And this just goes to show you that even if you have receipts, even if you trust the person that has worked on the car because they've done your brakes before or put tires on your car or changed your oil before, even if all of those things check and the green flags are there, one little mistake can cost you an engine. This was a $1 or so O-ring, and I'm just guessing, but most O-rings are around $1 or less. and they didn't replace it, or they did and they installed it poorly. All of this was for naught because they didn't do that part correctly. And the O-ring at the top of the valve cover, that would have led to other issues down the road, but not what we saw at the oil filter housing. That is what killed this engine. A cheap part, and that is usually the case. It's usually a cheap part that causes or is the catalyst for catastrophic engine failure like this. And the person driving it, most engines won't fix themselves. I'm just telling you that right now. This is hopefully a learning experience because these engines are actually like $1,000 to $1,200. So it's not like a $300 engine that you can go find at your local pick and pull. These are in pretty high demand for other reasons because these engines will head. We're not going to get into that. Either way, this engine was killed by a cheap part that was installed or lack of cheap part that was installed incorrectly. That's the end of the story. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. It was an easy one for me. I like working on stuff like this that I've done a few times before. And if you'd like to buy any of the parts out of this for whatever unknown reason, a desk ornament or so, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to my new website. Yeah, I know. It's there. It functions. It works. I have a new website. It is still importapart.com, and peruse our inventory. We have several different searches. You can look at our parts cars, which I have a lot to catch up, probably 150 cars to catch up on. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.